Let's fight. Today we're going to talk about how we can fight constructively with our partner and some of the do's and don'ts that are really important to remember during an argument, and also how a fight can actually be one of the best things for your relationship if you do it right and constructively. So let's start right now with what happened. Just a couple days ago, me and my wife had a big fight, and we, without going into too much detail, I'll just say, we both wish we had handled it differently, but that, just highlighted the importance for how we do this and making sure that we're sticking to fair fight rules and we're treating each other with respect even during the heated moments. So here's some do's and don'ts to start with. Make sure that when you're arguing with your partner, you're using I statements. You're taking responsibility for how you feel and what you're doing, rather than making accusations towards the other person. So for example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," you can try, "I feel unheard when I'm talking and the TV's on," or something to that effect, trying to draw attention to how you feel and not so much what they're doing wrong. Stick to the current issue. So don't go off on a tangent and start talking about what they did last year or 6 months ago or some other underlying problem. Stick to the issue at hand. People can't solve 5 or 6 problems at once. So stick to one. If there's a separate problem, then maybe make a note of it to yourself and talk about that at a different time. You don't want to overwhelm somebody with too many problems at once. They'll just feel picked apart. So you don't want to bring up past grievances or unrelated issues, etc. Listen actively. So this means making a genuine effort to understand your partner's point of view, their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. Show you're listening by nodding, making eye contact, and summarizing their points, such as, "So what I'm hearing you say is," so really make an effort. Don't just nod and smile to fake interest, but you got to remember that the goal here is to restore the relationship, or else nobody wins. We're not trying to win an argument. We're trying to win as a team by restoring the relationship and having a partnership. So really try to understand where they're coming from, and at least coming from a man's perspective, I think this might be a little bit of a stereotype, but I think for men sometimes we focus on the exact words being used and not so much the emotion behind it. And I think for women it can be the other way around. So if you're a man in the situation, in the relationship, try to focus and listen for how she feels and why she might be saying what she is, and try not to get so easily offended by some of the words, the specific words that she might be used. And if you're the female in the relationship, or you just more emotional and if you're a little less precise with your words, be careful of the words you use, because you could be using some really hurtful words, not really meaning them, but you're trying to get a reaction. You're trying to get your partner to show that he cares, and sometimes you can use some really harsh words. So both sides got to be thinking about how the other one is different, right? So that we can understand each other better. So that's listening actively. Take a time out if needed. If the conversation becomes too heated, it's okay to pause and say, "I'm feeling too angry to talk about this productively right now. Can we take 20 minutes and come back to this?" Be sure to agree on a time to resume the conversation. Don't just postpone it indefinitely or say, "I can't do this right now," and walk away. Make sure that you mutually agree. And if you're not the one making that decision and you're the one that wants to continue the conversation, try to be respectful of the other person asking for a timeout. They're trying to regulate their emotions, so respect that and give them the time they need. Just make sure that you both agree to come back in 20 or 30 minutes and resume the conversation. Be specific is the next do. Vague complaints are hard to address. Instead of saying, "You're always so messy," try, "I feel stressed out when dirty dishes are left in the sink overnight." That's a real simple example, but be specific about things that are bothering you instead of making vague statements. Look for compromise. The goal isn't to win the fight. but to find a solution that works for both of you, like we talked about a minute ago. Be willing to find a middle ground where you both feel respected. So again, the goal isn't to win, it's not to get your way, it's to restore this relationship and live at peace with each other so that you can both enjoy each other's company. And a lot of times this means not getting your way, but you can't have one person always giving and the other one always getting their way. So either try to come to a compromise where you can agree on one perspective or the other, or maybe you just agree to disagree, and you both accept the fact that you both have different and strong opinions about this topic, and you're still gonna love and care about each other, respect each other's differences, and you're gonna move on and not so-called die on this hill, because it's not worth it. Affirm your commitment to your partner. Remind each other that you're a team and the problem is the enemy, not each other. Saying something like, I love you and I know we can figure this out, can change the tone of the entire conversation, instead of, I can't do this anymore, or I'm done. Make sure that you're encouraging to your partner. Let them know that you're in this with them, not against them. Okay, so those are the do's. Let's talk about the don'ts. Don't use insults or name calling. These are very destructive. Personal attacks, sarcasm, and contempt are incredibly damaging. They erode respect and trust and cause wounds that are hard to heal. So these can cause long-term lasting damage if you're calling each other names, insulting, doing little jabs, underhanded, dirty jokes and stuff like that. So don't break each other down with insults or name calling. Don't use generalizations like always and never. These statements are rarely true and immediately put your partner on the defensive, making them want to prove you wrong rather than solve the problem. So yeah, I would say it's extremely rare for someone to always do something or never do something. They might have a habit where they do something too often or not enough, but don't generalize and say always or never. Try to stick to the specific example or the situation that you're in and talk about that. Talk about what actually happened and how it made you feel rather than generalizations. Mind reading is another one you want to avoid. Avoid making claims like you think or you don't think, or you feel or you don't feel. You're insinuating that you know how they feel and that you can read their mind and their intentions, which none of us can do. So all we really know is how we feel about their words and actions, and that's what we need to take responsibility for. We don't know what their intentions are, and we can't try to read their minds because we'll usually, almost always, be wrong. Don't threaten the relationship. This creates instability and fear, and it's a destructive way to try to gain leverage. So again, like we talked about a couple of minutes ago, don't say, I'm done with this, and this will never work, and destructive words like that, because you can actually make it come true by using words like that. You're just going to create fear and instability in the relationship. So don't use words that threaten the relationship. Don't invalidate your partner's feelings. Phrases like you're overreacting, or it's not a big deal, or you shouldn't feel that way, are dismissive, and they shut down communication. Their feelings are valid even if you don't understand them. So you have to let your partner know that you validate their feelings, you understand, or at least acknowledge how they feel, even if you don't agree. The fact is they feel that way. So at least let them feel heard and acknowledge that they feel that way. Don't engage in silent treatment. Withdrawing emotionally or refusing to speak, stonewalling, is a form of punishment. It's not a communication tool. It leaves the other person feeling abandoned and makes resolution impossible. So yeah, using silent treatment is a terrible way to resolve conflict. In my marriage, this isn't an issue. We're both pretty vocal people. Sometimes maybe a little too much so. But I know in some relationships, silent treatment is used against each other. And this can be really destructive. So whether you're on the side of being too quiet or being too vocal, don't use silent treatment to punish somebody. And don't use physical intimidation. Never use physical force or block your partner's exit if they're trying to get away and get a break, or even just to leave the house or whatever. Don't try to lock that door or block them from exiting the room. That's borderline becoming physical abuse now. So never use physical force or block your partner's exit, or throw things or punch walls or break things. This is not a fair fight. It is abuse. And don't put up with those type of actions either. So if you're in a situation where that's happening, obviously, we all can do things in the heat of the moment that we might regret, and you can remind your partner that you need to get by, you need to get out the door, you're trying to get some distance or whatever, but they shouldn't be blocking you, or especially using physical force against you. And don't fight when you're tired or hungry or under the influence. You're more likely to be irritable and say things that you don't mean and things that you'll regret. If possible, table the discussion for a time when you're both well-rested and clear-headed. Don't fight and argue when you're tired, hungry, or under the influence of anything. This is just not a recipe for success. So these are the do's and don'ts of how to fight constructively. And then here's the thing. We're not always going to follow these perfectly. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about if you fail on some of these points, how you can recover and how you can continue to move through your argument or your conflict and have success with your partner. Because remember, we're in this with our partner as a team, and we're not seeking to win the argument, we're seeking to restore the relationship. So just shortly, I'm going to be releasing a video on that. Until next time, thanks for watching.